Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, get right to what matters. And today, we are really getting into some fascinating and honestly pretty crucial source material on men's sexual health. We've pulled together a lot of research articles, expert notes, all really focused on one core question. What happens when guys, ignore those early signs that maybe things aren't working quite like they used to? So our mission today is to unpack all of that, highlight the really key warning signs, and give you some practical steps, things you can actually do.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing, isn't it, how this topic, which is so important, still feels, well, wrapped in silence. What's really interesting from the sources is seeing how these issues, which people often just dismiss as, bedroom stuff, they actually connect to your overall health in really significant ways. We'll look at the numbers, the sort of cascade effect when problems are ignored, and how these subtle signs can actually be your body giving you a heads up, an early warning.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's pull back that curtain. How do these first, maybe easy-to-ignore signs link up to that bigger wellness picture? Think about maybe a guy like David, right? 40s, successful, looks healthy, but maybe quietly he's noticed things changing. A bit less energy, morning erections not quite as reliable. He might just brush it off, stress, getting older. But what if those little whispers are actually a major warning for something much bigger? This deep dive, it's about arming you with knowledge, not just to understand, but really to take control. Okay, so first off, let's just acknowledge it, that societal silence around male performance issues. We talk about lots of health stuff now, but this one, still kind of in the shadows.
And that silence, it really feeds the problem, doesn't it? What the sources really hammer home is that this silence has a huge cost. When men overlook these early signals, it's not just about sexual health. They might be missing really serious underlying conditions that could impact, well, everything, their whole life. It's a critical piece of overall wellness we just don't talk about enough.
And the numbers, when you look at them, it's peabering. The sources point to about 30 million men in the U.S. alone dealing with erectile dysfunction. I mean, that's like the entire population of Texas.
Yeah.
And so many are struggling silently.
Yeah, and that's just the reported number. You have to figure the actual number is way higher.
Definitely.
And what's really eye-opening is that this isn't just an issue for older men anymore. That perception is really changing. Our sources show up to 26% of men under 40 experiencing some form of ED. That shifts things dramatically.
It really does. Are the sources giving us any clues about why we're seeing that shift in younger guys?
Yeah.
Besides just, general lifestyle stuff.
Yeah, that's a key question. And they do point to sort of a perfect storm of modern life, right? More stress, diets heavy in processed foods, sitting down all day, not getting enough good sleep. All these things seem to be speeding up these issues in younger populations. It's not just about aging anymore. It's a modern health thing.
Right. And when these early problems get ignored, that's when you see this cascade effect the sources talk about. Can you maybe walk us through the downward spiral? How does one thing lead to another?
Yeah, exactly. Think of it like a small snowball rolling downhill. It might start with just a slight dip in performance. Okay, that causes some anxiety. Then that anxiety ramps up your stress hormones, like cortisol. And high cortisol actually tells your body to make less testosterone.
Oh, okay.
So lower testosterone often means worse performance, which means more anxiety. And suddenly that snowball is an avalanche.
Right.
It becomes this really vicious cycle. The physical causes get worse if you don't intervene, and it drags your mental and emotional health right down with it.
Wow. Okay, so how does your body try to warn you? What are those subtle signs? Because it's not always like a complete failure to perform, right?
Yeah.
It often starts smaller.
Exactly. And that's the crucial point. These subtle things are the warning system, like maybe noticing fewer morning erections, or they aren't as strong as they used to be.
Right.
Or maybe a sudden drop in just spontaneous erections, especially if you're under 40, that's a flag. Then there's reduced rigidity. So erections might happen, but they're just not as firm. Penetration might still be possible, but it's different.
Right.
Or it takes longer to get going, more stimulation needed. And then maybe the biggest one, when occasional difficulties stop being occasional and start becoming, a pattern, that's a signal. Don't ignore that pattern.
And what's really interesting is how these signs pop up outside the bedroom, too. They're broader health clues.
Yeah.
What other areas should people be paying attention to? Things that might link back to these sexual health changes?
Yeah, that's where you really see the connections. Things like just feeling less energetic, less motivated. That can often tie back to lower testosterone.
Okay.
Or noticing you get winded more easily during exercise. That could point to underlying cardiovascular issues you didn't even know about. Sleep quality is huge too. If that's off, it really messes with your hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And even mood changes, feeling more irritable or down or anxious. Those can be early signs of hormonal shifts or chronic stress, which are all tangled up with sexual function.
So why is ignoring all this so, well, dangerous? Let's talk about the physical side first. The sources are really clear. ED is often one of the very first signs of cardiovascular disease, this canary in the coal mine idea. Can you explain that metaphor quickly and what atherosclerosis actually is?
Sure, atherosclerosis is basically plaque building up inside your arteries, like rust clogging up pipes. It makes them harder and narrower.
Okay.
Now, the blood vessels in the penis, they're tiny compared to the ones going to your heart or brain, so they often get clogged up first. They show the damage earlier. So what you might be experiencing in the bedroom could actually be a warning sign, maybe 5 years before a potential heart attack.
5 years, wow.
Yeah. Problems with blood flow down there often show up years before heart problems. That makes catching it early incredibly important for things like heart disease, diabetes. It completely changes how you should think about ED. It's not trivial.
It really does. And then there's the psychological toll. It's massive. What starts as maybe a little worry can just spiral into serious performance anxiety, to the point where guys might avoid intimacy completely.
Mm-hmm.
And this leads to much higher rates of depression, anxiety. The sources point out how shame and embarrassment just lead to isolation, which makes everything feel worse.
And the impact on relationships, that's huge too.
Right.
Often painful. When these things aren't talked about, communication just breaks down. Sometimes partners start blaming themselves, thinking, is it me? Am I not attractive anymore? Which just adds more pressure.
Yeah, it's tough.
And stepping back, you see how neglecting sexual health often goes hand in hand with neglecting other health stuff. Skipping checkups, letting exercise slide, not eating well. It creates this snowball effect. You end up with multiple more complicated health problems. It's almost ironic, isn't it? We optimize our careers, our workouts, but these fundamental signals from our own bodies, we can just completely miss them.
So let's peel back the layers then. What's actually causing this decline? What are the root causes our sources identify?
Well, the most common one, according to the sources, is usually cardiovascular, that reduced blood flow from atherosclerosis we talked about.
Right, with the clogged pipes.
Exactly. It's the same thing that leads to heart attacks and strokes, but it just shows up in those smaller penile arteries first. And things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, they all make it worse. They accelerate that process.
And it's interesting how it all weaves together. Hormones are a big piece too, right?
Yeah.
Especially testosterone.
Definitely. Testosterone levels naturally decline a bit with age, but lifestyle factors can really speed that up. Things like a poor diet, not enough exercise, chronic stress, bad sleep, they can tank your testosterone levels faster.
You mentioned stress and cortisol earlier. How exactly does that work? How does high cortisol mess with testosterone?
That's a great point. So when you're constantly stressed, your body churns out cortisol, the stress hormone. And high cortisol basically signals your body, hey, we're in survival mode, stop focusing on reproduction. So it directly suppresses testosterone production.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
And low T, as they call it, doesn't just affect sex drive or erections. It hits your energy, your mood, muscle mass, even bone density. And it's not just testosterone. Thyroid issues can sometimes cause similar symptoms too.
And beyond hormones and blood flow, the sources also bring up neurological factors.
Nerve damage, maybe from something like diabetes, can directly impact the signals needed for an erection.
Right. And certain medications, too, sometimes they interfere with those nerve pathways.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you have the psychological side, stress, anxiety, depression, relationship problems. These aren't separate from the physical. They're deeply intertwined. It's often a complex mix, which is why a good evaluation is so important. It's not just in your head. It's a whole body thing.
Okay, but now for the more hopeful part. The science of reversal. The sources are actually quite clear that many cases, especially when caught early, are reversible. So what lifestyle changes make the biggest difference?
Lifestyle is absolutely fundamental here. Cardiovascular exercise, for example. Getting your heart rate up regularly. It improves blood flow everywhere, including where it counts for erections. Studies consistently link regular exercise to lower rates of ED.
What about strength training? Did the sources connect that specifically to hormones like testosterone?
Yeah, they did. Strength training, especially lifting heavy with compound movements, is really effective for maintaining healthy testosterone levels.
So it's not just about building muscle.
Not at all. It's hormonal health, too. And managing stress is huge. We talked about cortisol. So finding ways to lower stress, meditation, yoga, maybe even counseling that can directly improve sexual function by calming down that stress response.
Okay, and nutrition. What did the sources say about diet?
The Mediterranean diet comes up a lot. Lots of fruits, vegetables, healthy fats, fish. It's consistently linked to better erectile function. And specifically, foods that help your body produce nitric oxide, that's key for blood flow.
Nitric oxide, right.
Yeah, so think leafy greens, beets. Those are great nitrate sources your body converts. Also, antioxidant-rich foods, berries, dark chocolate. They help protect your blood vessels from damage.
And sleep. Can't forget sleep.
Definitely not. The sources really stress getting 7-9 hours of quality sleep. That's when your body does a lot of its hormone production and regulation, including testosterone.
Okay, makes sense.
And then there's weight. Managing your weight is crucial. Excess body fat, especially around the belly, contributes to ED in several ways. It can lower testosterone, increase inflammation.
But the good news.
The great news is that even losing a modest amount of weight can lead to significant improvements in function.
All right, so lifestyle is key.
Yeah.
But the sources also stress getting a professional evaluation.
Right. Absolutely critical. Because ED can be a sign of those serious underlying issues: heart disease, diabetes, hormonal problems. You really need a doctor to do a comprehensive checkup. Look at cardiovascular health, hormones, psychological factors. Check if any medications are contributing.
And catching things early almost always means simpler, more effective treatment.
Exactly. And this brings up another key point. How important is just talking about it, communication?
Crucial.
Yeah.
Absolutely crucial. The sources really emphasize this. Talking openly with your doctor and with your partner. It makes a huge difference. So many men suffer in silence when help is available. And modern medicine does have effective treatments,
Yeah.
From pills to other therapies. It's about finding the right approach for the individual.
Okay, let's shift a bit to natural enhancement. You mentioned nitric oxide earlier. Can you explain its role a bit more?
Yeah, nitric oxide, or NO, is like a signaling molecule. It basically tells the smooth muscles in your blood vessel walls to relax. When they relax, the blood vessels widen and more blood can flow in. That's essential for getting and maintaining an erection.
And the sources say production of NO tends to decline with age.
It does, yeah. That decline is one factor that contributes to age-related ED.
So that leads to the idea of natural boosters, right? Things that might help your body make more NO or protect it.
Exactly. The sources point to certain compounds that have been studied for this. L-arginine is an amino acid. It's a direct precursor to NO. L-citrulline is another amino acid that might actually be more effective because the body seems to convert it to arginine pretty efficiently.
Okay.
Then you've got things like pine bark extract, which seems to support overall blood vessel health. And pomegranate extract, it's packed with antioxidants that might help protect the nitric oxide you do make from breaking down too quickly.
And the sources also mentioned specific supplement formulations, right? Like combining some of these.
Yeah, they did. They reference one example, Nitric Boost Ultra, describing it as a blend that aims to support multiple nitric oxide pathways. The idea presented is using clinically studied ingredients at effective doses, focusing less on just masking symptoms and more on supporting the body's own mechanisms for healthy blood flow, addressing a root cause, essentially.
Okay, so putting it all together, if someone's listening and thinking, okay, I need to do something, what's a practical plan?
Right, let's map out a potential path based on the sources. Immediate steps, say, week 1 or 2. First, just acknowledge it. No more ignoring. Then try a baseline assessment. When did you notice changes? What exactly is happening? Be specific. And do a lifestyle audit. Be honest with yourself. How's your diet, exercise, sleep, stress levels?
Okay, that's a starting point. What about short-term goals? Say the first 1 to 3 months.
Right. Month 1 to 3, start implementing changes. Get that cardiovascular exercise in. Maybe aim for 30 minutes of moderate activity like brisk walking 5 days a week. Really focus on optimizing nutrition. More whole foods, less processed stuff. Think heart health, sexual health.
Improve sleep hygiene. Make your bedroom a sanctuary for sleep. Consistent bedtime.
Find and practice stress reduction daily. Even 5-10 minutes of mindfulness or deep breathing.
And this might be the phase, as the sources suggest, where someone considers natural supplementation, like those ingredients we discussed for nitric oxide support, maybe something like the Nitric Boost Ultra blend mentioned, to give things an extra push.
Exactly. And then Long-term, beyond month 3,
Yeah.
what does sustainability look like?
It's about making it stick.
Right. Totally. Regular health monitoring, keep up with doctor checkups.
Continue optimizing lifestyle. It's not a temporary fix. It's a new baseline.
Keep communication open with your partner, with your doctor.
And stay educated. Keep learning about men's health.
Okay, let's zoom out again. The cost of not acting versus the benefits of acting.
The cost of inaction, well, it's stark when you lay it out. Increased risk of serious heart problems down the line. Relationships deteriorating. Symptoms getting worse. Maybe needing more invasive treatments later. Lost chances for easy early fixes. And that deep psychological toll.
Yeah, it's a heavy price.
Yeah.
But the benefits of taking action, they're really empowering. Guys who address these issues early, they report better sexual satisfaction, more confidence, better overall physical health, more energy, stronger relationships because they've faced it together,
Less anxiety, better mental health overall.
and just feeling more in control of their own health and well-being. It's not just about sex. It's about reclaiming your vitality.
And if we connect that back to the big picture,
Yeah.
it's just so clear. Sexual health isn't this separate, isolated thing. It's truly a fundamental pillar of your overall well-being. It reflects what's going on in your entire body.
So what does all this mean for you listening right now?
The sources couldn't be clearer. Those early warning signs, they aren't just problems. They're actually opportunities.
Opportunities.
Yeah.
How so? Opportunities to make changes. Changes that can not only bring back sexual function, but dramatically boost your entire quality of life. Whether that's through, lifestyle shifts, getting medical advice, maybe exploring natural support like the nitric boost ultra ingredients we talked about, or some combination. Effective solutions are definitely out there. The key, like our sources keep saying, is just taking that first crucial step.
Which raises a really important question, doesn't it? In today's world, there's so much information. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. But what this deep dive really shows is that simply understanding your body's signals and then acting on them, that's incredibly powerful. It's a solid step towards a healthier, more confident future.
So don't let silence or denial get in the way. Like David in our earlier example, he needed to act. Remember, reaching out for help, looking into solutions, that's not weakness, it's strength. It shows you're committed to living your best life. The path forward is clear. The only real question left is, will you take it?